Welcome back to the show, everybody. Check out these headlines this morning. We got Perry Ann Boring from the Bitcoin Chamber of Commerce. Yes, you heard that right. Chris Larson dropping truth bombs and a $10 trillion earthquake coming for crypto, says Forbes. And how about the New World Order, ladies and gentlemen? It's more real than you think. In fact, get ready, because here it comes. And we've got Jed McCaleb, 130% growth from Ripple. Somebody roll that beautiful intro.
Digital Perspectives with Brad Kimes. Come on in.
Welcome back to the show, everybody. You can follow me at Dig Perspectives at the top of the screen, and everything that we're talking about here today. $2.160 trillion market cap for cryptocurrency this morning. We're up 0.61%. Good morning. It's March 31st. 2022 as we close out the month. Bitcoin is 47,100 plus, Ethereum 3,400 plus. We see XRP at 86 cents right now, up about 3.7% plus on the 7-day. Range of price really quickly here is 85 cents on the bottom, 87 on the top. We'll keep an eye on it. Ladies and gentlemen, I tell you about Glint Pay all the time. It is the gold banking or gold alternative to banking system. It's why I love it. Yeah. And I use gold to save and hedge against inflation, and it is physically allocated gold to you for which you could receive if you choose. But I can tell you right now, I love it because I can put it on my debit card in my app and keep it there. And that's what I love. If I want to save, send, and spend, I can do that too. But this is Google Play Store. You can go there and do it. I'm so happy to be working with these people. They're a great company and great people. Make sure you check out the link underneath the video. Right here, we start right here, ladies and gentlemen, and this is going to get heavy very quickly. But the first piece of news here this morning is from John Deaton, who says, if the House flips in the United States House of Representatives, he remains confident that the Oversight Committee will have no problem bringing Gary Gensler to the Hill to answer questions about several issues related to digital assets, including inquiries regarding ethics, conflicts, and appearance of impropriety. Fingers crossed on that one, ladies and gentlemen. And here is none other than Perry Ann Boring from the Bitcoin Chamber of Commerce. I'm changing the name from Digital Chamber of Commerce to the Bitcoin Chamber of Commerce. Listen to what she says here.
A number of environmental groups launched a campaign looking into Bitcoin's code to decrease its energy use, saying that crypto is, quote, contributing too much to global warming. We've heard this before. It's one of the reasons it was run out of a couple of countries. Your thoughts on that?
Well, first off, that is a myth. Proof of work is the most secure mechanism, and proof of work is what runs the Bitcoin network. It is the most secure way to confirm and record blockchain transactions. So there is energy usage, but what you're getting with that is security. There are other blockchains that use less energy, but you're trading off security. So we need to be very, very careful about how we approach this conversation. And then further, it's estimated that around 60% of all the energy that's being used to mine Bitcoin today is coming from sustainable energy sources, which would make Bitcoin one of the most sustainable industries in the world. So we really need to think about what we're saying here and look at the facts and look at the data about how this technology actually works and what energy consumption and usage looks like.
Well, that's why we bring you on, because there's a lot of...
And there's the rest of that. But I'll tell you this, there's one thing that I agree with that she said here. We have to be real careful what we're saying here. You should take some of your own advice, Perry Ann, because, I mean, this is a joke, right? You must be kidding. You must be kidding. Oh, my goodness. What money can buy these days. This is Chris Larson, who's going to drop the truth bombs here. Love to hear Perry Ann's response to this and these little fun facts. Take a listen as 20 or 30 people control Bitcoin and could make the change to the Bitcoin code from proof of work to proof of stake. Sounds to me like Bitcoin isn't as decentralized as everyone says. Take a listen.
They changed it too and said, we don't want any of that here. And have basically been kicking out the Bitcoin miners because I think they saw that it was hurting their efforts to get the carbon neutral by, I think it is 2050, right? So what's going on now is they're going to other countries. Kazakhstan, that's not good because that's all fossil fuels. But now coming to the U.S., there's a lot of smart entrepreneurs who now are, creating renewable energy mining. But I'm sorry, there's no such thing as green mining because it's not necessary. They should be changing just like Ethereum did. And by the way, now I think the founder of Zcash also announced they're switching from proof of work to a different low energy protocol. Hats off to them too. But the Bitcoin folks need to make the switch as well. It's unconscionable that right today you gobbling up on the order of 70, and depending on the price, because it's correlated price, 70 to 140 trillion watt hours of energy. Look, if all of that was green energy, that's not good, because that green energy should be used for green steel making, green aluminum, green concrete, agricultural usage, direct air capture, green hydrogen, you name it. I mean, there are just so many battles that are being waged in this war, and that green energy needs to go elsewhere. A big part of getting carbon neutral is don't use energy where you don't need it. And you don't need it to confirm the state of blockchains. You just don't need it. So make the damn code change. And I tell you, I just don't think it's going to happen voluntarily. And by the way, look, this is not some secret AI that runs Bitcoin. Okay, it's about 20 to 30 very influential, very wealthy people that are going to make that decision between the core developers, the exchanges and the miners. By the way, there's a fascinating book I've been reading called the block size wars, and it's fascinating because this kind of goes back to one of the big changes that was proposed to increase the block size, and sort of how that played out, and how it was a very small group of people that prevented that. So again, this is a small group of people that are incredibly wealthy that could make this change, but they're not going to do it voluntarily because they've been making this pitch for 10 years, and it just doesn't hold water anymore, right?
And there you just have it right there from Ripple co-founder and his personal initiative, not Ripple's, but his personal initiative to go after these truths that he has brought to light here. Boy, would I love to hear Perry Ann from the Bitcoin Chamber of Commerce and Jake Chervinsky chime in on these. But until we do, let's hear Warren talk about it indirectly here. He proposes, looking to save a little face this morning, it looks like, damage control, if you will. And he's pointing out his Token Taxonomy Act here, basically, and saying, how does the definition favor or disfavor anyone? We need a bright line test, which I agree with, Warren, that provides legal clarity for innovators, investors, and regulators. All factions were involved beyond this definition. Interested started to diverge any input. Well, here's some input. He says digital equals tokenized digital tokens. 1, created, not a promise, or created to create them, no longer controlled by their creator, central authority, and transferable without intermediary, stored in an immutable distributed ledger, do not represent a financial interest in a company or entity. Well, I asked the question down here, Warren, per your definition, how does Bitcoin not fall under a security designation when everyone knows Satoshi Nakamoto, according to Chainalysis, has more than 1 million Bitcoin, which can be released at any time, and 20 to 30 wealthy people control Bitcoin through mining? Look, whether it's Warren or Perry Ann or Jake Chervinsky, love to hear from you. But until we do, let's change gears, because we're about to talk about a new world order, ladies and gentlemen. And this isn't something that I believe is 30 years off. I believe this is a lot closer than any of us actually really realize. And we start right here. Bitcoin and crypto now brace for a $10 trillion earthquake. And this is coming from BlackRock and Larry Fink. But what I want to get to you down here is this little clip at the bottom here, where in March, Credit Suisse analysts said that the Russian war in Ukraine will create a new world financial order that could boost the price of Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies. He says we're witnessing the birth of Bretton Woods III, a new world monetary order centered around commodity-based currencies in the East that will likely weaken the euro-dollar system and also contribute to inflationary forces in the West, which I believe we're already experiencing, ladies and gentlemen. This is Zoltan Pozer, global head of short-term interest rate strategy at the giant investment bank Credit Suisse. Now, look, then I went and I pulled this article on Zoltan here, who says, in fact, and I mean this year, right here, just a few days ago, okay, Zoltan Pozer from Credit Suisse, talking about the idea that what we're witnessing is the birth of Bretton Woods 3, a new world order centered around the commodity-based currencies in the East. He goes on to say this, right? He lays all of this out about how we're moving from, and gives examples from the previous collapses, 97, 98, 2008, 2020, and all the different examples here, which I'm not going to run through with you, but this is to say all of this right here. This woman right here is talking at the World Government Summit in 2022, this year. And wait till you hear what she says, that we're on the brink of a dramatic change to abandon the traditional system of money and replace it with a new one. Digital blockchains, central bank digital currencies, which will give us greater clarity over every single transaction. This is from Pipa Mamogren. Check it out.
I remember talking to an Australian diplomat at one point about this break between the US and China, and said, you know, both sides are going to say, whose team are you on? And he said, our job is to make sure the question never arises. But the question has arisen. And so I think we have to go deeper. And it's not about the US versus China. It's about what underpins a world order is always the financial system. I was very privileged. My father was an advisor to Nixon when they came off the gold standard in '71. And so
and very quickly, and they came off of the gold standard in '71, not because they didn't favor gold, but because Nixon wanted to keep and hoard the gold. Because the gold standard actually had other countries coming over here with our dollars and saying, you know what, here's your dollars, I want to trade it in for the gold instead. And Nixon actually abandoned the gold standard so other countries couldn't do that anymore, so he could keep the gold in the U.S. Continue to listen.
I was brought up with a kind of inside view of how very important the financial structure is to absolutely everything else. And what we're seeing in the world today, I think, is we are on the brink of a dramatic change where we are about to, and I'll say this boldly, we're about to abandon the traditional system of money and accounting and introduce a new one. And the new one, the new accounting, is what we call blockchain. It means digital. It means having a almost perfect record of every single transaction that happens in the economy, which will give us far greater clarity over what's going on. It also raises huge dangers in terms of the balance of power between states and citizens. In my opinion, we're going to need a digital constitution of human rights if we're going to have digital money. But also, this new money will be sovereign in nature. Most people think that digital money is crypto and private. But what I see are superpowers introducing digital currency. The Chinese were the first. The US is on the brink, I think, of moving in the same direction. The Europeans have committed to that as well. And the question is, will that new system of digital money and digital accounting accommodate the competing needs of the citizens of all these locations so that every human being has a chance to have a better life? Because that's the only measure of whether a world order really serves.
Listen, I have to say to you right now, just in understanding what we're talking about here, this is the World Government Summit this year. Now, do I know when this dramatic change is going to take place? 6 months, 12 months, 18 months, 2 weeks, 2 years? I don't know. But I know one thing, they're not sitting on that stage at a New World Government Summit or a New World Order conversation at the World Government Summit because it's not happening. That much you can take to the bank. And showing how we're preparing for that, U.S. lawmakers pass e-cash bill that replicates physical money because they're drastically trying to move very quickly here to figure out the best way to strategize our paper dollars of the governments around the world so they can control the on and off ramps to this digital world. And one of which is by calling this money an e-cash. And this e-cash, by this bill that's been submitted here by Stephen Lynch and others, you can see that the U.S. Treasury Department was selected as the most appropriate government entity to develop the pilot program for e-cash. Instead of the Federal Reserve, the U.S. Treasury Department was cited. right? Now, here's the other big thing here. In essence, eCash would be a bearer instrument. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this in this particular video, but go watch any video in my search, my playlist that says XRP a security, XRP a bearer instrument, or XRP a bond. We have had to entertain these ideas and notions before, ladies and gentlemen, and I'm telling you, we may not be out of the woods to have to entertain these conversations again. Talking about the fact that this particular bill submits that it would not be based on distributed ledger technology, but rather the eCash would be really designed to experiment with eCash devices. So just like cash in your wallet or cash in your pocket, if you don't hold it, if you drop it on the ground and someone else picks it up, they hold it and now they own it, right? So Ted Cruz is partnered up here, and so is Tom Emmer together, and they've introduced a bill which most of us are aware of, but very quickly, just to show you the angles that are being taken here through Congress in the U.S. for the dollar. And it is to suggest that the Federal Reserve not have access to make the retail CBDC because it would require users to open an account directly with the Federal Reserve, and then it would be used as a surveillance tool, which I completely agree would take place. And I am not a fan of anyone, the Treasury or the Fed or anyone, being able to see what we do with our transactions. But I have a sneaky suspicion that that's probably going to take place to some degree if they want it to. However, with that being said, this is Jed McCaleb here in a Twitter space talking and answering questions, key questions about whether Stellar will be working with banks. Now, let's understand this if you're not aware quickly. You know, Jed McCaleb, creator of the XRP Ledger, co-creator of all things Ripple in the early days, understand that he took the code with him to create Stellar. They are brother and sister. Twins, even, if you will. So take a listen to what he says here.
Will Stellar be used by banks and institutions?
I mean, that's certainly the hope. You know, I mean, like we have this partnership with MoneyGram, which is, I think, a big first step into that. And, you know,
very quickly, not to interrupt, but very quickly here, they are already working with the Central Bank of Ukraine to launch a CBDC on the Stellar network. So that's a yes. Number two, MoneyGram working with Stellar is exactly the replication of what we saw with Ripple and XRP as well back in 2019. Remember, and I believe those were tests, and I believe what you're seeing with Stellar is the same exact test happening that Ripple passed, and I believe they passed that test. But let's keep listening.
You know, they obviously have relationships with lots of banks around the world, and I think that that's sort of an inroad to getting with banks. I mean, we've had talks with lots of banks over the years. The ones that have gotten the furthest are ones kind of outside the U.S. That deal with like a lot of like cross-border payments. Mm-hmm. And you know, those are continuing, and you know, the banks take a long time, and they're pretty risk adverse. So right. You know, it's not going to be the first big things that happen, but I think that everyone's kind of warming up to crypto in general. So I think it's a little bit inevitable that eventually that happens. So
right, yeah. Okay, appreciate that. One more question. Will XLM, will Stellar and Ripple work hand in hand, or are they competition?
You know, the world of payments is like quite large, so you know, I don't know that there'll ever be a situation where you'll need to use both of them. You know, maybe for some weird thing, but I don't really see them as competitive. I mean, I feel like they're kind of going after a different part of the space of payments, and you know, again, like literally everyone in the world uses payments, from you know, from grandmas to large corporations. So there's
quite enough room basically for the two to coexist, is what he's saying here. Here's what I know in summation from the information we've got today. Whether we're talking about Brooks Entwistle reporting on Asia Pacific transactions growing 130% on a yearly basis growth, or whether we're talking about the idea and understanding of this right here, which is Ripple and the Republic of Palau partnered to create a digital currency, or the Central Bank of Bhutan Royal Monetary Authority doing the same exact thing. What I believe we're seeing is not isolated, siloed events, but I believe what we are actually seeing and witnessing here is this. It is the new world order and being on the brink of dramatic change. And I believe Ripple and Stellar are smack dab in the middle of it. Not financial advice from me or anyone else, just my digital perspectives. Hit the like and subscribe, leave a comment below. Make sure you check out all the links underneath the video. They're great products and services I use each and every day. I'll catch all of you on the next one.